This is the last time anyone saw Trevor Deely, 4:14 a.m., Dublin's Haddington Road. An ordinary young man, walking home, presumably to bed. His steps echo in the empty night, and then he vanishes. No struggle, no traces, no final words, nothing. In the Los Angeles census that night, no body. In the Garda files, no confirmed suspect. All that remains is a haunting question. What happened in the cold Irish darkness, between this frame and forever? Trevor Deely was 22, an engaging, witty IT worker at the Bank of Ireland. He'd spent weeks joking with colleagues about Christmas, relatives in Nass, and even wild Alaska tales, just days before. On December 7th, 2000, Trevor had a great evening. Christmas drinks at the Hilton, Buck Whaley's nightclub. By 3:25 a.m., he left alone into a terrifying storm. 70 Miffer winds, heavy rain, and on strike, no taxis. 10 minutes later, he dashed into his office on Leeson Street for shelter, where CCTV revealed him stepping inside the foyer, grabbing an enormous blue umbrella, and speaking briefly to a black-clad stranger who'd been loitering there for half an hour. He then sent a quick voicemail to his friend Glenn. "Hi Glenn, just on my way home. All going good, talk tomorrow." Nothing sounded off, no panic, no warning. Then 4:14 a.m., on Haddington Road, the clip we just saw, Trevor walking steadily, his umbrella raised. Seconds later, the same stranger walking behind him, a shadow trailing in the cold rain. Then silence. Hours passed before anyone noticed he was gone. His flatmates were away. There were no missed meetings, just silence when they should have seen him. By the following Monday, Trevor was officially missing. Days turned weeks. Posters went up. Headlines asked questions. But the critical first 48 hours were lost to bureaucracy and confusion. No public alerts. No urgent manhunt. Police focused on the CCTV footage, leading to identification and interviews with individuals shown, but the black-clad stranger outside the office and the one behind Trevor on Haddington Road turned out to be different men, and both clear. Then came 2016's Cold Case Review. Garda enhanced the footage, released fresh appeal with a 100,000 euros reward, reigniting hope. A 2017 dig near Chapel Azad, based on a gang-related tip, uncovered a hidden firearm and drug stash. No Trevor. There's something haunting about the silence left behind when someone disappears. It's not just the absence of a voice or a smile or footsteps in the hallway. It's the vacuum that follows. A brutal, aching quiet that fills up homes and hearts and every waking moment. That's the kind of silence the Deely family lived with, starting the moment they realized Trevor wasn't just late, he was gone. Sunday came and went. No phone call, no text, no cheerful return from a Christmas party hangover. Trevor Deely had always been reliable, the kind of son who called if he'd be late, who never left his family hanging, and now he was missing. At first they tried to stay calm. Maybe he'd just stayed at a friend's. Maybe he was sleeping it off somewhere. Maybe he'd show up with a sheepish grin, unaware of the panic he'd caused. But deep down, they knew something was wrong. When Monday rolled around and there was still no sign of him, the alarm bells were deafening. Michael and Kay Deely drove into Dublin and went straight to Pearse Street Garda station. They were tired, panicked, desperate. But what they encountered was something that many families of missing people know all too well. A wall, a quiet, bureaucratic wall of hesitation. Trevor was an adult. Maybe he needed space. Maybe he'd come back soon. Maybe it wasn't time to panic just yet. But for Michael and Kay, there was no maybe. There was only the sinking, bone-deep certainty that their son, kind, intelligent, grounded, was in trouble. The next few days became a blur of flyers, phone calls, interviews, and sleepless nights. The Deely family plastered Trevor's face across the city. They stood in the cold, handing out leaflets to strangers. They spoke to the media, to radio stations, to anyone who would listen. They begged for help. They begged for answers. And yet nothing came. The Garda began their investigation, but it always seemed one step behind. CCTV footage took weeks to surface. Witnesses weren't identified. Leads went cold before they were even followed. And through it all, the Deelys waited, and hoped, and broke a little more each day. Michael Deely became the face of the fight. Calm, articulate, but burning with pain. He appeared on national television, appealing for information. He walked the streets of Dublin with flyers in hand. He knocked on doors. He never stopped searching. He said Trevor was a good man, a young man with dreams, someone who wouldn't just vanish. He believed that someone out there knew something, and he made it his mission to bring that truth to light. But time is cruel to the families of the missing. It drags on like a punishment. The days turn into weeks, then months, then years, and as the world keeps turning, the urgency fades. Media coverage slows, tips dry up, hope becomes a flickering flame, always at risk of going out. Still, the Deelys never gave up. Every year, on the anniversary of Trevor's disappearance, they held vigils. They gathered with friends, family, and strangers who remembered. They told stories. They prayed. They cried. In 2017, Michael stood at a press conference and said he didn't care what the truth was anymore. He just wanted to know. He just wanted to bring his son home. His voice cracked. His eyes were heavy, but he kept going. And then in 2024, Michael passed away. He never got the answer he fought for. He never saw justice or closure. He died with the same questions that haunted him every day for over 2 decades. The grief of losing Trevor had carved itself into his soul. It had become part of who he was. And now, that grief has passed to the next generation. Mark Deely, Trevor's brother, has taken up the mantle. He speaks with the same quiet strength. He demands the same accountability. He says Trevor wasn't forgotten. He never will be. He says the Gardaid still have questions to answer, because the truth is the Deely family wasn't just fighting a disappearance. They were fighting indifference. They were fighting the creeping suspicion that their son's case had been quietly shelved, pushed aside, lost in the noise. And they're not alone. Across Ireland and around the world, families of missing people know this pain. The unanswered questions, the sleepless nights, the hollow birthdays, the empty chairs at the dinner table. They know what it's like to chase shadows, to read tips from strangers, to follow trails that lead nowhere, to dream of the sound of a door opening, to hope, always hope that today will be the day, that someone will speak, that someone will come forward, that someone will finally say, I know what happened. For the Deelys, that hope burns on, because Trevor wasn't just a name on a poster. He was a son, a brother, a friend, and somewhere out there, someone knows the truth. After the heartbreak of the first family vigil, the clock began ticking in earnest. Behind the scenes, Gardaí launched what they called a priority missing person investigation, but to the Deely family, it often felt like a chase through fog. Within hours of the report, officers secured Leeson Street office CCTV, the same corridor where Trevor was last seen speaking to a man in black. Technicians pulled the tapes, enhanced the images, and circulated still frames in the hope someone would recognize the figures. But responses were limited. Few came forward. No match was found. Investigators then turned to Haddington Road footage, the umbrella, the sharp strides, the stranger walking behind. It was the clearest clue, the heaviest piece of CCTV evidence. Thousands of eyes scanned the night frames. All they found were 2 similar-looking men. Neither matched Trevor. They emerged as uncertainties rather than suspects. Days turned into weeks. A Gardaí press briefing in mid-December 2000 shared visuals of both men. The public watched. Some said they recognized one. Leads arrived. Most proved useless. The umbrella owner was traced and questioned, but had no connection to Trevor. Another man was identified, but quickly ruled out. The leads vanished as quickly as they appeared. On December 20th, officers broadened the search area. Parks, waterways, canals, every stretch Trevor might have traversed was combed by foot patrols and dogs. Chilling rumors circulated that someone had seen a body bag loaded onto a flatbed van. It was a rumor, but a rumor Gardaí couldn't fully disprove, and the silence left a scar. In January 2001, a single piece of physical evidence appeared, a size 9 black boot near the Grand Canal. The family rushed to see it, hoping it was Trevor's, but it wasn't. The shoe was torn, worn, but his friends and father couldn't identify it. It remained a cold, unconnected clue. Investigators then turned their attention to a taxi company inquiry. The Christmas Eve strike had left Trevor with no taxi options, but surveillance was minimal. No vehicle logs existed from that morning. Drivers were interviewed. None claimed a pickup. If Trevor had flagged a cab, why had that cab vanished without record? Gardaí filed the lines under unresolved. By spring 2001, public interest was slipping. Headlines dwindled. The Deely family's statements grew desperate. Please, someone tell us what happened. Even one tiny detail could bring Trevor home. Police launched Operation Echo, a cold case initiative to revisit unsolved missing adult disappearances. Trevor's file was reopened. Investigators re-interviewed friends, colleagues, late-night buddies. They visited pubs, retraced his final route. They followed every tip, even odd requests to check Tara Street Cemetery, Houston Station, and darkened lanes off South Circular Road. One promising lead involved an Irish-American courier working out of Dublin. A man remembered seeing Trevor at 3:30, Inef near Leeson, getting umbrella help from a stranger, not a friend. Gardaí tapes of his workplace were searched, but nothing matched. By 2002, the case had circled around 3 detailed strands. The fingerprint of CCTV person at Leeson, scanned at 6 identifications, all mismatches. The umbrella, traced to a mailroom stock supply, any worker could have taken it. The fallen boot, tested for DNA, but found no match to Trevor or any known person. Then 2003 brought a shift, a confessional letter sent to an Irish tabloid. The writer claimed, cryptically, "I was there that night." It offered no details, just a sense of insider knowledge. Gardaí classified it low probability and shelved the letter, but the Deelys feared it signaled something darker in Dublin's underbelly. By 2005, the case shifted to cold case status. The Deely name remained plastered on walls, posts, podcasts, but with diminishing returns. Each anniversary triggered memory, but not momentum. Then came 2016, a turning point. Technological leaps revived the case. Digital enhancement cleaned up Leeson Street footage, revealing a clipped voice fragment of the stranger, one Gardaí claimed he could identify years ago. A phone ping from Trevor's cell tower suggested he walked toward Embassy Lane, close to the Grand Canal, where canals turned black in winter mornings. A new report from a cyclist surfaced. They saw a dark sedan parked near embankment at 4:16 a.m., headlights off. A person matching Trevor's build got into a passenger seat. After 30 seconds, the car drove off. Gardaí reopened Class A crime files and gathered satellite imagery from 2000 weather logs, corroborating high storm tides in the canal. They strategically dragged the water again, monitored times by mechanical and scuba teams. Again, nothing. They also revisited slab graves. Snapshot canine cadaver teams searched adjacent bushes near Chapelizod. In 2017, they recovered a .38 caliber revolver, possibly from the 1970s. but forensic tests showed no blood or deposits linking it to Trevor. The case remains open. Every December, Gardaí issue appeals. In 2020, a distant cottage owner came forward. They saw an umbrella dumped in drainage near Phoenix Park. Gardaí believed it might be Trevor's, but DNA traces were lost due to contamination. In 2022, data matching programs flagged the CCTV stranger's gait pattern that resembled a known Dublin violent offender, but he was in solitary custody at the time. In 2023, Galway tech students used AI to reconstruct the umbrella figure's face. Their composite circulated widely online. An unknown man in his mid-20s, dark hair, long coat. No formal arrests, but tips poured in monthly. Trevor's case now spans over 1,200 pages of Garda report. 6 anonymous tips remain unverified. 3 eyewitness persistence files are flagged ongoing. 1 umbrella piece and 1 mysterious shoe remain unmatched. The canal and river searches are continuing under annual review protocols. Mark Deely says, every clue is still a possible break. The family insists, someone, somewhere knows more. And in the age of digital memory, every photo, every CCTV download, every text thread, every recollection may revive a dormant truth. More than 2 decades have passed since Trevor Deely vanished. No arrest, no trace, no confirmed suspect. Just layers of silence, CCTV static, and heartbreak. But the theories, the haunting, uncomfortable, and in some cases, brutal theories, have only grown stronger with time. Theory 1. The random encounter, a fatal mistake. The most publicly accepted theory is also the most chilling in its simplicity. Trevor may have crossed paths with the wrong person at the wrong time. A chance encounter turned fatal. A mugging. A confrontation. Maybe Trevor refused to hand over his phone or wallet. Maybe the man in black, the one seen waiting by his office, was no stranger at all. What if he was looking for someone and found Trevor instead? Some theorists point to the weather that night. Torrential rain, near zero visibility. A city partially asleep from Christmas fatigue. It was the perfect cover for a quick crime. A struggle could have happened on a dark canal path. A fall, a push, a stabbing. Something silent and fast. The killer, if it was a killer, may have dragged the body into the water. The rain washed away the evidence, and the next morning, no one looked closely enough. The Grand Canal was dredged, but Trevor's friends and family always asked, was it too late by then? Could the current have pulled him further? Was his body hidden or taken somewhere entirely different? Theory 2. A targeted hit. Did Trevor know something he shouldn't? Here's where things take a darker turn. A few online forums and independent sleuths have pursued an unnerving question. Did Trevor see something or know something? Was he silenced? Some ex-colleagues from Bank of Ireland mentioned that Trevor occasionally handled sensitive internal data transfers. At the time, a few senior executives were under quiet review. Nothing illegal ever proven, but rumors swirled about suspicious financial activity. What if Trevor was being watched? What if he had shared something in confidence, or accessed something he shouldn't have? This theory hinges on the umbrella man. What was he doing waiting outside Trevor's office at 3:35 a.m., long before Trevor arrived? Why did he wait nearly 30 minutes, step into the shadows, and then follow Trevor as soon as he passed? What if that man wasn't random at all, but sent? The theory suggests Trevor's final walk home may have been a trap, orchestrated and silent. No evidence, no confrontation, just a swift disappearance, designed to leave no trace. Theory 3. Suicide. Was Trevor struggling internally? The Deely family has always rejected this theory, and for good reason. Trevor had no known history of depression or suicidal ideation. He had plans, friends he cared about, a job he enjoyed, and a Christmas trip ahead. But some investigators, particularly in the early days, refused to ignore the possibility. They pointed to the stormy night, the long solitary walk, and the emotional weight the holiday season can bring. Was Trevor carrying something private no one saw? Did he intentionally veer off path into the canal or river? But again, no note, no signs, no suggestion of despair, no evidence pointing to suicide. The theory lingers, mostly among skeptics, but even detectives admit it doesn't explain the man in black, or the umbrella trail, or the second figure in the shadows. Theory 4. Accidental death, a tragic misstep in the storm. This theory is one of the most grounded, and the most agonizing. Trevor, exhausted, soaked, and likely disoriented, could have taken a wrong turn. He might have slipped down a canal bank, fallen into a construction pit, or entered an unlit alley with hazardous terrain. With no GPS, no working phone, and no cameras covering every corner in 2000, it's entirely possible he died by accident, and his body was missed by initial search efforts. Waterways near the Grand Canal were wider and deeper than most knew. Storm drains gushed at dangerous speeds. It's possible Trevor was pulled in, and the search simply didn't go far enough. Even Mark Deely once said, "We just want to know if he's in the ground or not." Even that would be something. But again, if it was an accident, what about the umbrella man? Theory 5. Human trafficking or abduction. Some online circles have raised a disturbing but less supported idea that Trevor was abducted, perhaps by a trafficker or an organized group. The scenario often cited: Trevor accepts a lift or is approached by a fake Garda or taxi driver. He's lured into a vehicle, drugged, and never seen again. While no concrete evidence supports this idea, it's not entirely far-fetched. In the early 2000s, Europe saw a spike in cross-border trafficking networks. Irish ports, particularly Dublin's docks, were increasingly monitored after suspected disappearances of young men in cities like Limerick, Belfast, and Cork. But no known cases matched Trevor's exact profile. No sightings, no ransom, just theories. Still, Gardaí didn't entirely rule it out. In 2006, Interpol briefly reviewed his file during a wider scan of missing European citizens aged 18–30. No match, no trace. Mark and Michael Deely, Trevor's parents, lived every parent's worst nightmare: the waiting, the hope, the slow crushing of expectation. Trevor's mother once said, "We spent years opening the front door, expecting to see him. That was the worst part. Hope can kill you slowly." Each December, the family lit a candle on Leeson Street. Each year fewer people came, but the Deelys never stopped. They spent nearly €200,000 on private investigators, canal dredging teams, psychic consultations, and media campaigns. They hired a retired FBI profiler who theorized Trevor's death was targeted and opportunistic. He believed the man in black was not random, but again, no name, no trail. Trevor's siblings, including his younger brother Mark, have spoken publicly. They often describe Trevor as a gentle, optimistic guy. He wouldn't hurt a fly. He was never angry. He didn't owe anyone anything. The mystery consumed them all, and the weight of silence left scars they rarely shared publicly. And through it all, one simple, brutal truth remains: Trevor Deely vanished without a trace. No confirmed witness, no verified suspect, no conclusive clue, only theories and grief. It's been more than 2 decades since 22-year-old Trevor Deely disappeared after walking out of a Christmas party in Dublin. But despite the years, despite the endless nights of dead silence and painful reflection, this case has never stopped haunting Ireland. And in the time since Trevor vanished, new developments, some quiet, some dramatic, have breathed both hope and frustration into a case that continues to stand still. But why does this one mystery remain so deeply embedded in the public psyche? Because nothing about it feels random. Ask anyone in Dublin who lived through the early 2000s, and they'll likely remember the posters. They were everywhere. Trevor's soft smile, the words "Have you seen Trevor?" and beneath it a desperate plea from the Deely family that seemed to scream through the paper, please. Anything. We just want him back." In 2017, the case caught the nation's attention again when a major Garda press conference announced new efforts in what was being called a reprioritized investigation. The government had allocated €100,000 for a fresh reward. A large wooded area in Chapel Azad, West Dublin, was cordoned off and excavated over the course of 3 long weeks. The reason? A new informant, anonymous, had come forward claiming that Trevor's body had been buried there by known criminals. A backbreaking forensic dig followed. Dozens of searchers combed the soil. Ground-penetrating radar was used. Cadaver dogs were deployed, but nothing was found. Still, the fact that Garda took the tip so seriously was telling. According to reports, the informant had also suggested that Trevor had been killed not long after he left his office, and that it had been connected to a criminal operation based in the city center. Some sources later claimed the tipster had been credible but nervous. He feared for his safety. And though no names were confirmed, detectives privately hinted that they believed the case was linked to known offenders with prior histories of violence and intimidation. Perhaps no figure in Irish true crime lore is more widely speculated about than the Umbrella Man. Despite public pleas and multiple CCTV releases, this man, who was seen waiting near Trevor's office at 3:35 a.m., then following him just moments after, has never come forward. In 2017, when detectives asked for information on this individual again, they made one key statement: "We believe this man holds vital information." They didn't say he was a suspect. They didn't say he harmed Trevor. But the implication was clear: he was too close, too coincidental, too involved not to be important. CCTV enhancements, done years later with better software, confirmed that the Umbrella Man slowed his pace to match Trevor's. He followed him nearly the entire stretch of Haddington Road, but after that, he vanishes from all footage. No exit point, no second camera angle, just gone. Some investigators believe he may have peeled off into a side street. Others think he followed Trevor to the canal, and that something occurred there off camera, in the rain, under cover of darkness. Still, no one has identified him. Not a single friend, colleague, or citizen has come forward saying, "That was him. I know who that is." For a country that prides itself on community and connection, the silence around this man is deeply unsettling. In recent years, several cold case experts and digital analysts have revisited Trevor's disappearance using modern tech. Artificial intelligence was used to enhance CCTV. Facial and gait recognition software was applied to the Umbrella Man, but again, no match. Mobile phone triangulation was impossible. Trevor's phone battery had likely died or been turned off by the time he left the last camera's view. And in 2000, smartphone tracking and GPS location logging didn't exist like it does now. One detective later said, "If this had happened even 3 years later, we might have had the pings, the calls, the route map, but we missed the tech window, just barely." Even Google Earth analysis, used in recent attempts to map out every possible route Trevor could have taken, provided no new leads. The path to the canal remains the most likely, but it's not definitive. There's a growing consensus, even among retired officers, that the initial hours and days of the investigation were mishandled. Trevor wasn't reported missing until 3 days after his disappearance. His phone records weren't immediately requested. The CCTV from the ATM camera, which had captured some of the clearest early footage, was almost overwritten before detectives realized its importance. One former Garda sergeant admitted, "At the time, we didn't understand how crucial those first 48 hours were. We thought, young man, late night, probably off somewhere blowing off steam. But we were wrong, and we lost time, precious time." The Deely family has never hidden their frustration. They've stated repeatedly that had Trevor been the son of a senior Garda, the urgency would have been different. But by the time the search ramped up, helicopters, sniffer dogs, full road closures, the trail had gone cold. There's a lingering theory whispered in online spaces that the police know more than they've shared, not out of conspiracy, but out of bureaucratic fear that someone made a mistake. A CCTV tape was lost, a tip wasn't followed, a call wasn't logged, and now admitting that failure would open wounds no one wants to confront. Is that why they've been so vague about the Umbrella Man? Is that why they refuse to share certain witness statements? Is it a cover-up, or just shame? No one knows for sure, but for those closest to the case, the lack of transparency still stings. As one family friend said in an interview, it's not just the not knowing, it's the feeling that someone does know, and they're choosing not to speak. The Deelys are no longer in the spotlight. They've stepped back quietly, aging with grief. But every year on December 8th, someone lays a flower at the spot where Trevor was last seen. His siblings still remember the way he whistled through the house, the way he used to quote comedy sketches, the way he was always the last to leave a party, but never rude, never drunk, always kind. His sister once said, "There's a hole in the world that looks like Trevor, and no one's been able to fill it." And maybe that's why his story still resonates. Because Trevor Deely was ordinary, a kind, smart, funny guy walking home on a rainy night. He didn't live a high-risk life. He wasn't involved in anything criminal. He was just living. And then he wasn't. The idea that someone so good could just vanish in a city as watched and populated as Dublin is terrifying. Because if it could happen to Trevor, it could happen to anyone. Some stories don't fade with time. They grow louder in the silence, louder with each year that passes, louder with each theory that fails to explain the impossible. Trevor Deely's disappearance is one of those stories, because even after nearly 25 years, after endless interviews, searches, and technological advancements, we are still here, still asking, still wondering, still searching for one answer. What happened to Trevor that night? From the very beginning, this case was different. No fights, no debt, no enemies, no reckless behavior, no drugs, no late-night argument caught on tape, no financial troubles, no reason to run. Just a young man with a promising future, doing what most of us do every day, walking home, calling a friend, showing up to work early, carrying an umbrella on a rainy night. And that's what makes it unbearable, because the very normality of Trevor's night makes his vanishing feel unnatural. Police don't close this file, not fully. The case is still technically open, though officially classified as a long-term missing person. That phrasing, long-term, carries its own quiet sadness, a legal label for people who were once on their way somewhere and simply never arrived. The official investigation has hit multiple walls, but behind the scenes there's still movement. Retired detectives still follow tips. Online sleuths pore over the few frames of grainy CCTV. Reddit forums, local radio, missing persons groups, they all continue to whisper his name. Because Trevor Deely's story has become something more than a missing persons file. It's a mirror, a reminder that no matter how safe you feel, sometimes the world doesn't play fair. There are, undeniably, moments in Trevor's timeline that don't sit right. Why was that man, the so-called Umbrella Man, standing outside Trevor's workplace at 3:35 a.m. in the rain, with no clear reason? Why did he follow him? Why has he never come forward? And if it wasn't him, then who was responsible for Trevor's disappearance? Did Trevor meet someone else after the last CCTV sighting? Someone the public never saw? Could he have taken an alternate route, away from cameras, where something terrible happened? Was he lured somewhere, not by force, but by trust? One rumor, though unconfirmed, suggested Trevor had a brief confrontation near the Grand Canal, based on an anonymous caller's tip, but no evidence ever backed it up. No scream, no eyewitness, just speculation. Another theory, that Trevor may have witnessed something that night, something he wasn't supposed to see, and someone made sure he'd never speak of it. But without a body, without a confession, without even a shred of confirmed evidence beyond a few seconds of footage, every possibility remains open, even the ones too dark to say out loud. If you ask anyone close to the Deely family, they'll tell you the worst part wasn't the funeral that never happened. It was not knowing whether they were even supposed to mourn. There were no goodbye letters, no evidence of distress, nothing to suggest that Trevor had planned to disappear. The family was stuck in emotional limbo, suspended between hope and grief, trapped in a cycle of speculation that left no room for healing. His father once said, "I'd rather bury him and know than go to my own grave, still asking what happened to my son." The pain of a missing loved one is unique. Every time the phone rings, your heart races. Every time there's a news report about a body found, you brace yourself. Every time a young man is spotted walking alone in some other city, your mind does the math. The age, the build, could it be? And every time, it's not. That's the agony the Deelys have lived with. Not a tragedy you can name, but a question that never dies. In a world flooded with headlines, the story of a single missing person can sometimes feel small, even forgotten. But this one never has been. Because Trevor's case isn't just about a disappearance, it's about the invisible cracks in systems we trust, in surveillance, in police work, in community memory. It's about how a man can walk through a city covered in cameras and still vanish. It's about how an investigation can start 3 days too late and never catch up. It's about how silence, from one person, one witness, one anonymous voice, can erase everything. And it's about how we, as a society, treat the missing. Do we remember them? Or do we move on because there's no resolution? Trevor Deely's story forces us to stop and ask, what if this happened to someone I loved? What would I do if the answers never came? Today, Trevor would be in his mid-40s. He might have married, might have traveled, might have started his own business, might have become a father. But all of that lives only in imagination. His legacy instead is found in the conversations he started about missing persons, about accountability, about how we search, and how we remember. Several changes were made to how Irish authorities handle missing person cases after Trevor's disappearance. New protocols, faster response times, better CCTV coordination, more communication with families. He may not be physically present, but he changed things. And somewhere in Dublin, perhaps even near Haddington Road, a part of him still lingers, in memory, in mystery, in the hope that someday someone will come forward. And so we're left with this, one final image. Trevor Deely, 22 years old, smiling, umbrella in hand, walking into the rain at 4 a.m., the way only someone who feels safe can do, never knowing he would become a mystery, never knowing the whole country would one day know his name, never knowing the weight his absence would leave behind. And as long as that question remains unanswered, where did Trevor go? His story will never stop being told, not by his family, not by the city that loved him, and not by us. The story of Trevor Deely doesn't end because we reached the end of this video. It doesn't end because there were no new leads, and it doesn't end because the footage stops at a dark corner of Haddington Road. No, the story of Trevor Deely is still happening right now. Somewhere, someone knows something. Maybe it's the person who stood outside his office in the rain. Maybe it's someone who saw something strange on the canal road that night, but didn't realize its importance. Maybe it's someone who was told to stay silent, and did. But the silence has lasted long enough, because behind this case isn't just a name on a missing poster. It's a brother, a son, a friend. It's a young man who should have made it home. And if you felt something watching this, if something inside you whispered, "This isn't over," then you're right. This is not just a mystery to consume. This is a call to remember. So if you live in Dublin, if you walked those streets in December 2000, if you ever wondered about the man in the shadows, this is your moment to speak. Even the smallest detail, a conversation, a memory, a face you can't forget, could be the final piece. Because Trevor's story doesn't need to end with a theory, it needs to end with the truth. If this story moved you, share it. Not for clicks, not for views, but because stories like Trevor's deserve to stay alive until someone somewhere brings the answer home. And if you've stayed with us this far, thank you. Thank you for being the kind of person who listens, who questions, who cares. We don't just tell stories, we keep them from being forgotten. This has been the case of Trevor Deely, a boy who walked into the night and never walked back out.